Listeners, viewers, hello, this is Carter. This is not the official opening to this episode of the podcast. It sounds like it, but it's not. You'll get that in just a second. This is just a quick bonus opening to say thank you, because this represents our 200th episode of Making It Up, which is pretty amazing. I remember, so I started the very first episode of this posted almost 5 years ago, back in January of 2021. And my partner, Jessica, was the one who kind of came up with the idea of just saying that I should start a podcast. And I had kind of been thinking about it as well. And of course, this is back in the height of the pandemic when we're all looking for things to do. But I kind of just had this thought about interviews, about talking to other authors, and knowing that I had done a decent number of interviews myself where I was the subject. And a lot of interviews that we do, or at least that I did, were pretty canned, right? Like kind of the same questions, which is fine, but kind of some silly stuff as well. Like, which character of yours do you want to have dinner with? That kind of a thing. And I thought in my opinion, what I thought was lacking on kind of the author interview landscape was just a total free-for-all interview where it wasn't really prepped. It was kind of like, hey, these two people just met at a cocktail party and they have a conversation, and they happen to both be writers, and they have a conversation about writing, very organic. And so that was kind of the premise when I started Making It Up. And early on, I would say I did do more prep. Now, not so much. And I love it. I love talking to other writers. I've gotten so much out of it. We've been trying to do about one a week for the last 200 episodes, and it's mostly been about that, but not always. And I wouldn't have thought that I would have necessarily stuck around for 200 episodes through almost 5 years of this. But I get stuff out of every episode. I get inspired by every person that I talk to, regardless of what they write or, where they are on their publishing path. It always energizes me. So, no end in sight. So if you are enjoying this, you're going to be stuck with me for a little while, because I plan to keep on doing this. So just wanted to say thank you for listening and or watching. It means a lot to me. And you can always, leave messages. You can always email me at carterwilson.com with any kind of feedback or guests that you want to see on here. Right now we're booked out about 6 months or so. So I can't take every suggestion that comes to me. But I would love any kind of critical feedback. So if you'd like to see something different on the podcast, or you just have advice, feedback, or even compliments, I would take those as well. So thank you very much, and enjoy today's episode. Friends, hello, this is Carter, and welcome to this episode of Making It Up, the podcast where two writers just sit down and have a totally unscripted, unprepared conversation. I rarely ask them about their specific books because I am much more interested in hearing about their journey as a writer, their struggles, their successes, what surprised them. That's, I think, what makes this podcast a little bit different, and certainly it's fun for me because who knows where the conversation is going to go. Before I get to today's guest, just a note that if you're an aspiring writer, if you're a struggling writer, I do have a writing company called Unbound Writer, and it's located at unboundwriter.com, where I do one-on-one coaching. I do manuscript coaching. I do accountability calls, all sorts of different things. In addition, I also offer retreats and seminars, and also there are a series of online courses that you can purchase on the website directly and just take them at your own pace. And as always, I offer a complimentary get-to-know-you call where you can reach out and schedule a call with me, and we can just see if we're a good fit for working with one another. All right, on today's show, I had Michelle Jabès Corpora. Michelle is an author with my same publisher, Source Books, but she's with the YA division, which is Source Books Fire. And I met her at a Source Books dinner earlier this year in Denver, invited her onto the podcast, and her new book is called His Face is the Sun. What's interesting, a lot of things are interesting about Michelle. What's fascinating about Michelle is she didn't just write a novel and hope that it would sell. She actually started 20 years ago as an editor and working with book packaging, actually kind of work for hire, co-writing and ghostwriting books. So a steady income, a job, something that few writers and authors have. Um, and even the books that she has in her own name prior to this one were work for hire books as well. But she has kind of taken a different path now. She started writing not only under her own name, but without any guarantee that a book would sell. She is the sole author of her new book, His Face is the Sun, and it came out to huge acclaim and great success. So she's doing something right. But it was an interesting conversation just about the other ways that you can advance in a career as an author, even if you're not necessarily selling novels right out of the gate. So it was great to hear about that. There was a different angle than what we talk about typically, and it was definitely a learning experience for me as well. And all of that work in these last 20 years, doing work for hire stuff, gave her the skill set and the muscle necessary to write a book under her own name that's as successful as this one is proving to be. So you're going to like this one, folks. This is a fantastic conversation. This is my chat with Michelle Jabès Corpora. So we met each other at, what was it? The Source Books
Dinner
dinner
in
for,
Denver.
right, for the independent libraries, right?
Yes.
Booksellers dinner. Did you enjoy that? Were you the one? I'm trying to remember that maybe it was a little bit much, a lot like a lot of people. Maybe you're not.
No,
And,
I
and
loved it.
I'm thinking of somebody else, right? Because you're just like, let me show you who I am, because that this is kind of a different space. Have you been with Source Books before this book?
No.
Yeah.
So I'm an editor by trade. I've been an editor in the children's space since 2007.
Okay.
I always wanted to be an author, but that was kind of something else that was something I really wanted to do, and it was, something I could do for a day job. And it turned out to be like a huge part of my like development as a writer.
Hmm.
So for my first 9 books, I was doing ghostwriting and work for hire. So I did some ghostwriting in a very long running established middle grade series at Simon and Schuster for 5 books.
Hmm.
And then I did a couple middle grade historical fiction novels, one for Penguin and one for Pushkin, that were part of a series. And then I did the Holly Horror duology, which was my first YA for Penguin as well. But that was also like a work for hire situation. So it was like an audition and all of that. And I mean, it was all like wonderful. And I mean, I started out in a big 5 publishing house, but then I've been working in concept development for 14 years. So
So
like,
explain what you mean by that.
yeah, so technically they're called book packagers. So a lot of the really commercial fiction that we think of, I think Gossip Girl was done this way. A lot of like long-running fiction series are done by book packagers, and it's basically like a TV writer situation. So like with TV writers, you got a whole bunch of people in a room, and they all
The
come up with
writer's
a
room,
script
right?
together, right, as a team. And that's basically what a book packager is. You come up with, concepts for series and, many, many books as a team. And so I've been doing that for a very long time. And
Yeah.
so coming up with concepts was just sort of my thing. So doing ghostwriting and doing these work for hire situations was natural for me, but also helped with my like paralyzing writers, issues of like, having trouble finishing things or having
Hmm.
trouble like taking something original and following through. Um, and doing that kind of work eradicated that problem for me. And
Interesting.
suddenly I was able to produce things and, I sort of took my self-worth out of the situation. And
Right.
when you're
Right.
doing projects for other people, it's easier to do that because you don't feel the same kind of ownership
Yeah.
for it.
For
Um,
for better or for worse, I would think.
yes. I
Because
mean,
the
it
other
was
side of
a,
that coin is the ego is suppressed a little bit. You're like, hey, this thing
oh,
is the
yes.
bestseller and my name's not on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was my ego was definitely suppressed in a really good way throughout the whole process because
Interesting.
it forced me to focus completely on the story and the craft and not what it meant for me as a person.
Right.
I just needed to do a good job. I wanted to make a good impression. I
Right. It
wanted
was
to
your
keep
job.
writing books. Yeah, it
Right.
was my job. And
Yeah.
I mean,
You
like,
were
frankly,
reporting to somebody and you had to turn in high quality work.
yes. And
Yeah.
like, it has always been my job.
Interesting.
I've
Yeah.
never seen it as anything but that. And so
Right.
then when my when I turned in the first Holly horror manuscripts, like I said, it was my first young adult offering. My agent, who is one of the most wonderful people in my life, was like, "Very good. No more work for hire. Never again." And I was like, "What?" And because she knew that I was afraid of doing something original because I'd been in the industry. I know how hard it is.
Right.
I really know, from
Right.
the inside. And I just was like, I have two kids. I have so much to do. I can't spend, 6 months to a year working on something and then not knowing if it's going to go anywhere. Like,
Right.
I was afraid. And she was like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is the time. Like, this is your moment. You need to write your book. Like, it's enough like doing things for other people. It's time for you to do this for yourself. And it was like that changed
You
everything,
got
changed
pushed
my whole
off
life.
you pushed over the ledge. I have
Yes,
a
I
lot of
needed it.
questions based on everything you just said. I'm
That's good.
because it's fascinating because this is a side of the industry we don't talk about much on this show. It's the typical author journey where, just like you said, it's like it's a crapshoot. You have no idea, years of rejection. But there's this whole other world where there's work for hire, where there is predestined books to come out. That's absolutely fascinating and takes the same amount of skill and brain power. But it's more of a guaranteed kind of a contract, or at least so when you say work for hire, it's like we're going to pay you X to produce this rather than royalties and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yes. I mean,
Um,
you
Go
can
ahead.
get royalties after a certain sales point, but it is very difficult to get to that point.
Okay. So first of all, just backing up a little bit, how did you get to the point of becoming an editor? Was this something, did you study English in school? Was it something you would always want to be around books kind of in your professional life?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to write books since I was able to read.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty single-minded as a
Yeah.
person.
I think most writers are. There's this tenacity that we see in a lot of writers. It's like, well, I can do this, don't tell me I can't do this. I see it a
Yeah,
lot in the people that I talk to, and I think it is a kind of a shared trait. And that doesn't always mean success, but it means they're the ones writing the books, which is, as you know, an incredibly difficult thing to do.
it
Uh,
is. Yeah.
your your initial move into editing and into book packaging and work for hire situations, was that born out of kind of an objective and realistic view of like what you just said? This is a really tough industry just to break into, and there's no guarantees of anything. Why wouldn't I put myself in a situation where I know I'm a part of a team and these books are going to be published and I'm going to have a steadier income from it?
Yeah. I mean, I went to school for English. I got a master's in children's literature.
Okay.
I sort of like my husband and I got married, and he asked me. I was very unhappy after college because I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I really felt I'm a very realistic person. So
Yeah.
like the idea that I was going to go out and write books for a living, like even then I was like, this is not viable. I was just like, don't be,
Right.
so I was very unhappy. I was like, I don't really want to be an English teacher. I don't really want to be a newspaper
A
journalist,
journalist, yeah. And it's
you
kind of
know?
interesting, just to quickly interrupt, it's interesting that you're a realistic person with a really well-founded and objective view on the industry, but yet you chose to be an English major where your options are by default kind of limited unless you keep continuing in through the educational system and become a professor or whatever.
Yeah, I'm a study in contrast
Yeah,
and
you're a dreamer, but you're also a
absolutely.
pragmatist.
Yes, yes, it's the push and pull of my existence. Yeah. Um, so I was very unhappy right after college, and there was a night that I'll never forget. It was like there was a hurricane, I believe, going
Hmm.
on. And I was in his apartment one night and there was no lights. It was like we were just stuck. Like there was no electricity. And so we were talking, and he was like, if money didn't matter and if like whether it's possible or not didn't matter, what would you do with your life? And I was like, I'd make books for children or young people. And he was like,
Right.
okay.
That's
Like,
your wheelhouse already.
yeah, I mean, and so I was just like, yeah, I mean, what am I going to do? I have to do the thing that I was meant to do. And so every choice from that, I mean, basically, I quit my job, he quit his job, and we moved to New York. And I took a non-paying internship at DK Publishing
And you
with
made
like, we moved to New York. I had no job.
right. And you
And
needed the universe to throw a hurricane at you to have that moment.
yeah, and I mean within a month I had a job at HarperCollins and the rest is kind of history. That led to my job that I have now
Right.
for the book packager, and the book packager, the people I met there led to my first ghostwriting job. And so,
Yeah.
like I'm a firm believer in like taking massive risks to like do what you're meant to do. And I feel
Right.
like the book that I wrote, that's like my book, is like really very much about that. And because every huge risk I've ever taken has led to another step toward, what I always wanted to do with my life. So if I
Right.
hadn't done any of that, even one of those things, none of this would have happened.
Totally. I 100% agree with that. And I can reflect on my past and see the same thing. And doing what you're meant to do doesn't mean you're going to make more money than you were already making. It doesn't, there's a lot of things it doesn't mean, which is also very fulfilling in the sense of like, oh, I'm making less, but I'm so much happier because I feel it in my bones that I love waking up in the morning. I get excited about the story, and there is something about that. But it also takes, I think your point is great. You take risks, but it's not just dreaming about what I want to do. It's taking, they call it inspired action, right? Like
Yeah.
being very mindful about exactly the steps you're going to take, and they might work, they might not work, but you have to take that action. And I mean, there's no action greater than you both quitting your jobs and then physically relocating to make zero money in Manhattan.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's amazing. Because I was going to ask, how do people find you as an editor for hire? But simply by taking that non-paying job, within a month you were a known entity, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, those internships are even the unpaid internship is hard to get. I
Oh, I'm
was like
sure.
I was one in like 1,000, but
Oh,
because
wow.
or maybe not it was
But still,
definitely
long
more
odds.
than 500
Yeah,
applicants that summer because it's only a summer internship.
got it.
Um, but the fact that I had that master's in children's literature, which is another big risk that I took, that made me stand out. And, like, yeah, that led to everything else. And I think the one thing I would say is like that was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like people have this feeling like, well, I have to do it now and I have to do everything. Like that was almost 20. years
Yeah,
ago. Like,
totally.
and now I'm sitting here with you, and like this year, everything like went really well for me. But
Yeah.
it was my 10th book, and it's been 20 years since I started this like journey, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah, totally. And that's the parallel between us, right? So I started writing 22 years ago. Three books didn't sell, and my 10th just got published this year, and it was my first
congratulations.
true breakout big book. And
Wow.
so it's
We're
kind of
really
a
living an unimportant
kind of
year.
weird, isn't it? Because you're
Yeah.
saying this, I'm like, oh, she's telling me my story. I didn't have a concept that I ever wanted to be a writer, so that's a huge difference. But I do think about this from time to time, and I think about, I would consider the two of us and a lot of people in our category people who've made it. And you can define making it however you want. That again, that doesn't mean you're making a lot of money at it, but you are achieving the things that you want to do with a degree of success that I think most people would agree upon, is pronounced in the publishing industry. And when I think about it, and then I think, yeah, but it took, so I'm doing all the right things, but it still took 22 years to get here. But it doesn't feel like, oh my God, I can't believe it took so long. It feels like this has been quite a ride. Who knows what's going to come next?
Yeah.
And that's kind of life, I guess.
I feel I feel the opposite that maybe people would think about like how long it took. I don't look back, like you said, I don't look back and go, gosh, I wish that had happened sooner. I look back and I go, wow, like this event this year means so much because I know how much it took to get here.
Right, right.
Like I can't even like every time I think about everything that's happened in the past 6 months, I'm just overwhelmed.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, you know, all of that work and all of that time and that time in my life, like it's all bloomed into this, and that's like the best thing I could ever
Totally.
imagine.
Well, because it's been earned, right? That's the sense of like all this work has paid off. And you strike me as somebody who looks at all those stepping stones along the way, including the ones where maybe you fell in the water a little bit, as, oh,
Absolutely.
I needed that to get to the next one. And we look at kind of these shiny debuts whose first thing that they ever wrote is a blockbuster. And sure, maybe there's some jealousy, but there's also like, they don't know what, like, because I can guarantee you the next one's not going to sell like that. And they're in for a rocky road. And it's great that they have this, but they're between that and the steady climb is very fulfilling because the
Yeah.
increments are exciting, and sometimes it's incrementally backwards too.
Yeah.
But those are learning lessons for us. They're not failures, I think.
Yeah. There's an amazing book. Haruki Murakami is one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And he just wrote a book a couple years ago called Novelist as a Vocation, I believe. And he has a whole section about, you know, it's one thing to write one book. It's another thing to spend your entire life writing books. Because it's like it's a totally different like experience to
Right,
to live in that place, not to visit,
right,
but to live there and to say, how do I keep doing this forever?
right, right.
That's he compares it, he's a big runner and he's like written books, I think a whole book just about running. What I think of when I run, no, it's like totally butchering the
Yeah, right,
title, but and he really, I believe, talks about how it's like this, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint,
right.
to be a novelist by vocation, meaning you do it as your career for many, many years it's it's an athletic feat.
It is, and I think going back to the earlier part of our conversation, I think that's where the writer's mind is best served, and I think naturally occurs to start treating it as a job, which is kind of what you've done editing. It's like, okay, I've been assigned all of this, I've been paid to do it all, so it's a job. But even those people who now writing books that you don't know what's going to happen with them. You still have to have that mindset because it's like, because there are days that are hard. There are days where writing is tough. And I say this all the time, if you wait for inspiration, you're fucked because that
Yeah.
doesn't come along that often. You have to rely on the muscle, all those miles on that marathon. You have to be excited for mile 13.
Yes.
And even if
Yes.
mile 12 is brutal, you're like, okay, but I've built the muscle. I can do this. And I think the people who don't treat it as a job won't be lifelong authors. I think if you think instead of how do I do this for the rest of my life, you think I can't picture myself not doing this for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
you're an
Exactly.
author, because that's how I feel. I'm like, especially because I'm only writing an hour a day. Like I'm excited for that. I love to sit down like what happens now?
Yeah.
And I can't picture not having those daily moments. Like it's not that hard if you do it regularly and not in these overwhelming doses, at least for me.
Yeah, everybody has their own process, and like through writing this series in particular, which has been the mo I mean, I'm 10 books in, but this series has taught me more in the last year.
Yeah.
And I think maybe not that I've learned combined, but like it was the most intensive year of learning I've ever had. And
Right.
and um it really has forced me to think about like inspiration. And this comes from another book that I love, The War of Art. I don't know if you've read that one by Stephen
No.
Pressman. Oh
Uh-uh.
my gosh, you have to read that one. That one is like of all the
All right,
books,
listeners, the
The War
war
of
of art,
Art
not
is
Sun
so good.
Tzu's The Art of War, the war of art.
Yes, it's The War of Art. But he says something like, inspiration is not, you don't invite inspiration
Right.
to come to you. You have an appointment.
Hmm.
Like every day that is going to happen, and I think it is very much for me because this first book was a really, really heavy lift for me. I'd never written fantasy before,
Hmm.
and it was historical fantasy, and I had written historical before, but this was extremely ambitious for me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I'm going to do this, I need to be extremely disciplined. And it really became like, like working a muscle and building muscle,
It is
because
that.
I
It's a
would
hundred
do,
percent that.
yeah, I have my way. I like these out. I figured out I work better in the afternoons.
Yeah.
I get everything done in the morning. I work better in the afternoons. Some people, I mean, a lot of people, it's the opposite.
Right.
But I had to figure that out. Well, you know what? My mind is clearer after I get all
Right.
of my house stuff done or
Right.
my other job taken care of. And that was stuff I needed to figure out. And then once I got into a rhythm, it was like I had an appointment with inspiration. I didn't need to like feel like it.
Right.
This is the time I sit down, I bang out my 1,000 words. Good, you
Right.
know?
And how many times do we sit down and sometimes we're not in the mood? And I don't know about you, but I don't outline. So a lot of times I'm like, I don't know what. And within 5 minutes of being kind of full of agony, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, the brain kicks in, that inspiration, that muscle kicks in,
Yeah.
and then it just works and it's not because I'm this amazing naturally creative person. It's because I've worked that muscle for 22
Practice.
years,
Yeah.
and my brain is expecting and is receptive to that moment. But you have to put in the time and the consistency for that to happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's been like a really good and necessary, like internal examination of myself, just
Hmm.
getting this thing getting through this. I mean, it is very much a marathon. It's like three giant books in 3 years, basically. Um, and like I've learned when I shouldn't push myself, like because at first I was like every day, like 7 days a week, 1,000 words. And I was like, okay, I need to know the days that I can't do that. Like,
Right.
and they come. They don't come that often, but there are days where, during the drafting process where I'm just like, I need to rest.
Right. Well,
It's
it's
not
like
something
working
I can,
out.
yeah,
You
Exactly.
need
You
your
need to
rest
have a
days.
deload week. You
Right.
need to like
Totally.
know when your body needs time to recover
Right.
and and then know that that lack of productivity will lead to better productivity when you're done.
Totally. And it's funny, I literally just did a video about this exact subject last week because I took some time off because I was moving my daughter into her apartment for law school. And my mindset was like, you know what? I am just going to be in the moment. I'm going to be with my daughter. And so it's sometimes you need a rest, sometimes you just need a vacation.
Yeah.
But if you've put in the time, then when you return to the book, it doesn't feel like this overwhelming thing. There's a
Mhm.
thing, if you work out 5 days a week and then you take a month off, that first day back, it's hard to get motivated to get back into it. But if you work out and you just take a few days off, then it's not so bad. And it's you do need to kind of recover, just mentally, physically, because I find even after I write, so say I'm doing 1,000 words in 1 hour, I feel like if I push it to 2 hours, I can feel the diminishing returns. I can feel myself getting sloppy, getting lazy. Unless I'm just crazy, have a great idea. But even if I have a great idea, it's great to just stop and be like, I can't wait to pick this up tomorrow because it'll
Yeah.
all come rushing back and I'll have new energy.
Absolutely. Like I've had enough experiences where I would force myself, even when I was having like a not great day, I would force myself to put something together. And
Right.
then inevitably the next day I go back to it and I'm like, this is garbage. I delete the whole thing. And I'm like, why
Right.
did I do that?
Right.
What was the point? That was only loss, right? Because I lost the time where I could have been resting
Yeah.
and I lost the work. So like just don't do it.
Yeah, I
And
agree. On the days where it's just really not coming, which it never just doesn't come. Like you can always write something, but that where you have a profound sense of like maybe you're being directionless in it.
yeah.
Those days I tend to then just write notes to myself. Like maybe this happens, maybe that happens. What if this? What if that? So I'm kind of just brainstorming rather than writing words that I know are going to have to be cut. And even that doesn't happen that often, but I want to feel like that time is still productive. But even if it's 200 words, you put your time in. Some days are like that because the day before you did 1,500 or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
it's all it's all a game. And
Yeah.
it's just so good for your brain. I think that's the other thing I think about is like I think about how they talk about aging. You should do Sudoku and Wordle, and I'm like, if you write a little bit of a novel every day,
Yeah.
that's
It's
so
sharp.
good for you. I think it just literally strengthening that muscle. And then the other side of it now, I mean, obviously you've had books out before that were under your name, but like to your point, work for hire books. But now with a hugely selling book under your name, now there's the other side of the author's life, which are podcasts, public appearances, dinners with booksellers. Do you like that stuff? Are you getting used to it? What's your
I
take?
I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. Like
yeah,
it's funny because I am a pretty introverted person. Like I definitely need um like time to decompress and be alone after
yes,
I do all of that. But I mean, being working by myself and doing this, and it felt this way in the kind of ramp to publication for this book where like there was these incredible things were happening and I was like overjoyed or whatever, but like it didn't feel real.
right,
It's like nobody was looking at me in the face and telling me these things. They were like coming in over email and stuff. And I mean, there were some people I didn't even know what they looked like yet. Like I never met them. And like
right,
they're these important people in my life now.
right.
At Source Books, particularly before that trip that I met you in February, I hadn't met anyone at Source
Well,
Books
no,
ever.
why would you? Like, there's
Right.
yeah, unless you're going out to Illinois to visit them.
Exactly. And so it was this very like this sense of like I could wake up one day and it was all just like not really true.
Right.
Because I couldn't see it, I couldn't touch it. And so at all of these trips, I mean, the one in February, was the first. And so, I mean, it became immensely real in
Yeah.
that moment. And I was just like, oh my God, like this is incredible. Like meeting you and everyone else and all the source books people. And I was just seeing stars. I mean,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah. No,
But I was
it's
like,
great.
this is amazing. And it was just people are so lovely and I love talking to them and I like putting on a nice dress. I mean, gosh, it's
Right,
all
right. And you're talking about what you wrote. So you don't really have to be prepared because the subject matter so
yeah.
deeply. And I have those moments every now and then where a good example is I'll be on a call with like a PR and marketing team and maybe an editor talking about a launch or something like that. And then they start talking to each other about my book. And I'm kind of just listening. And I'm like, this is just weird. They're all strategizing from a business perspective about something I just made up and wrote
Yeah.
down. And when those moments hit, it's very surreal because it's like what I wrote is having ramifications in other people's lives, not just readers, but people who have to figure out how to do the cover or the title or put it out there. And it's just
Wow.
somebody, and I'm like, I just made it up because I was drunk that night or whatever. It's just bizarre, but
Yeah, it is.
that's where it becomes very fulfilling when where you have the pride of ownership, I think.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, just there's this, we're all so like connected, I guess, nowadays online and everything. But, is it really connection? And, a lot of those
Right.
connections are bad,
Right, right, right. Or
Um,
totally superficial or outright fake.
yeah, toxic or,
Right,
so having these, feeling these connections with people all over the world and people who I don't know who, are either messaging me or leaving reviews or whatever, and just saying things about what it meant to them. It's like the most incredible feeling of just like, I don't know, it's very magical to me.
yeah, yeah,
Like it's very hopeful. I know
totally,
I know not all authors have that experience, and I might not have that experience forever, but right now it's just that intimacy,
right,
'cause especially with this book, it was very personal.
yeah,
I put a lot of myself into that book, and it's very vulnerable in a lot of ways. And I don't think I think about that because I'm like, it's a job, and I'm like very like blinders about doing the work and making it the best it can be. It's not until after it's completely done and out of my hands that I look at it and I think, oh my God, like
right,
I just completely like open myself up to
totally,
every world and what are they going to say? And
right,
so having people, the majority of people just be welcoming and embracing my work is just, it's, I don't know,
totally. And
unexplainably
yeah, and even the
profound.
bad reviews or the negative comments, again, as long as they're about the book and they're not doxing you or doing something horrible,
Right.
those are okay. Like my son the other day, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna see if anyone has ever talked about you on Reddit." I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Oh,"
Oh no.
he's like, "There's all these people talking about you on Reddit." I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Oh," he's like, about the book, the new book." And he's like, "Oh, some of it's not good." I'm like, "That's okay." Like, because I know the book's is selling well. I know it's positively reviewed. Obviously your agent and your editor put it out there, so you have the confidence of like, yeah, I know some people aren't going to like it, but they're talking about it, and how weird and cool is that? I mean,
Yeah.
because and when you write something personal, you really have to take that attitude because I do know
Yes.
some people, especially if you're writing like a memoir and
Mm.
people are bashing it, you know,
Very hard.
you have to really take those slings and arrows if you're a writer because that's going to happen. Not everyone
Yeah.
is going to love your stuff. So
I think that's where my, at least what I what I try to do, but my like idea of separating myself from the work and not having too much of an ego about it is helpful because if I read a bad review, I'm like, well, I could make my favorite dish for somebody, for 100 people, right? And like it's like the best dish I can make. And, half of those people might not like it because it's just not to their taste.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that I did something terribly wrong. It just means that that's not for them, and
Right.
that's okay.
Right. Right. And
Like,
it's
can't
good just
really
in
expect
general
everybody.
not to read reviews. I remember the one review that really annoyed me is a newspaper reviewed something, one of
Ugh.
my books, and it said nothing. It summarized the plot
Ugh.
and it got one of the characters' names wrong.
Oh
And
no.
and I'm like, I'd rather have a bad review than just like you're just
A
basically
non-review.
writing the back cover copy with the wrong name. That's
Ugh.
what annoys me. I'm like, no, give it to
Yeah.
me if you don't like it.
But reviewers are only people as well, and
Right,
they have sometimes their own agendas and I mean,
right, right. No, totally,
but
totally.
most of my experiences with reviewers has been nothing but pleasant. So,
Yeah, yeah, and me too. And over time, I've learned I don't even look at. I mean, this sounds very whatever, but it's true. Like I don't look at reviews. I look at early reviews, pre-pub reviews,
mm,
trade reviews, and then after it's published, I'm just looking at the numbers, like how many reviews, what's the average, because it's data and it's information.
yeah,
But I don't go down the rabbit hole because
yeah,
a good review is great, but it only makes you feel so good, and a bad review doesn't make me feel terrible by any means, but it'll annoy me,
yeah.
temporarily. I'm like,
Stick
well,
in your mind.
what's the point of that? I think early on as a writer, I would read everything because I wanted to see like, okay, if all the bad reviews are saying the same thing, that's good
Yeah,
information to have too. And then I think you get to a stage in your career where you're just like, this is how I write. And it seems to be working out for me. And I'm willing to learn, but who I learn from now are not, you know,
yeah.
just the masses. It's my editor or other
Right.
writers or conversations like this where I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting point. I should try this. Um, but if you
Yeah, for
just
sure. I think it's important for every writer to know like their own boundaries and like their own
totally,
process and just how they work best because it is not like I do love my writing books. Like I love reading those. My other one that I love is Stephen King's on writing.
it's the
But
hallmark. Yeah.
do I write using Stephen King's process? No. I am a massive, massive plotter.
Yeah.
I write like huge,
Right.
detailed outlines of, Stephen King doesn't do that.
No.
He is, you know, absolutely amazing. But I still can learn from him. I still do, I did take a lot of his advice, but like everybody's different.
Right. And that's what's great about Stephen King in that book in particular is that he doesn't say this is how you write a book. He says this is
Oh,
how I write a book.
yeah.
And 100 if all those books and all those master classes on this is how you have to do it, it enrages me because I'm like, what if your brain doesn't work that way? And I think creatives sometimes, aspiring creatives, don't listen to their own brain. They think here's
Yeah.
the formula,
There's no
and
formula.
there's no formula. And even the methodology you develop, if it's not natural to you, it's
Yeah.
going to read that way. And also understanding it might take 500,000 words before you figure out your methodology. And
Absolutely.
people are so impatient. I'm like, no, it took me 8 books to find my voice. When I go back and I look at it, I'm like, that's where my voice started. I can see it.
Yeah.
And I needed all of those other books to get to that point. And I think people lose patience and they don't, if you tell them it's going to take you 20 years and 10 books, they're like, that's too much work.
You really have to, at least for me, I really had to be with myself a lot
Yeah,
and accept and understand who I am because like writing is the purest expression of you.
right.
And if you don't understand yourself and accept who you are and your frailties and your strengths and all of that, then you're never going to hit whatever your highest potential is.
Right. Right.
Because, those strengths and frailties are not the same as this person that you're listening to or this book that you read. And, I got my outlining process from my job. But that process that I started with from learning from other people is very different from what I do now.
Right. Right. And it's that I think the hardest part of it is figuring out that balance between how you organically create and express yourself, coupled with the vulnerability to accept and analyze feedback,
Yeah.
and choosing which feedback resonates with you. Because if you're obstinate about the whole thing and like this is how I do it, I think you're limiting yourself. If you listen to everyone's advice, you're going to have a shit book.
Right.
And that balance, I think, is the hardest thing to achieve. And it really takes you being very open minded, I think, to do that. And do, because when somebody reads your work, say an editor, and they make a specific comment that you feel in your bones,
Yeah.
and you're just like, oh my God, they're so right. This is something I'm surprised I didn't think about myself, as
Yeah.
opposed to someone else just telling you stuff that just doesn't hit you at all. But that's a feeling you've got to develop. That takes a lot of practice, I think. It did for me at
Yeah.
least.
And it takes thinking of it as a job because on it as a job, you have coworkers, you have people
Right.
that you report to, and you have people that you are working with, and you have to be able to cooperate with them and not let your emotions get in the way.
Right. Right.
I'm
Totally.
incredibly, incredibly fortunate to have found my current editor at Sourcebooks.
Well, source
Annette.
books in general as a company, right?
Oh,
Like they put so much heart. I mean, it's all top down, right? Like
yes.
Dominique has always had such a strong vision, for
Yeah.
the company through massive, massive growth spurts, maintaining that vision and then having that vision be implemented into their editors, into their PR marketing people, into their
Absolutely.
distributor and their salespeople.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been with them for 6 published books and 2 more we just signed,
That's
and
awesome.
they're same editor, and yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that doesn't mean you always have this amazing relationship. There's
No,
snags
but
along the way, but it's respectful.
yeah, and it makes such a difference. Like her vision is the same as my, like that was something that I understood right at the beginning, which is why the relationship works so well. Is like she sees, as the young people say, she sees the vision.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, that's why
and
she bought the book, right? Like
yeah,
you,
but it's not always why they buy the
it's
book.
not always why they buy the book, and certainly coming from your perspective, where books are basically commissioned, I think it's easy to get a cynical attitude about it. But my
Well, and it's
experience,
easy to be cynical when sometimes they buy the book just because they think it'll sell.
right,
They
right,
don't
right,
think they're not like
or they buy the book
emotionally
because
invested.
the author is huge on TikTok. Um,
Right, like it could be anything. But like with Annette, it's just been like she is as much in this world as I am. And so, you
yeah,
know, those comments and that editorial letter and all of that, it's just to me, it's a relief. Like I
right,
know so many people dread that. They
no,
dread the comments, they dread the letter. I am like, give me the letter, please. Like,
yeah, yeah,
because it's like this person is helping me make this the best version of this
right.
story possible.
Because everyone has the same vision for the book. They all want it to sell as
Yes.
many copies as possible.
And I am only one brain,
Right.
like my brain
Totally.
gets tired. Like this is an amazing person dedicated to helping me make this better. And like like
Right.
that's a
It's
great thing.
their job. Right. And why wouldn't you be? Then that's not to say it's not a lot of work. You might get an editorial
Oh,
letter. You're like, this is 3 to 4 months of work.
yeah.
I can tell. But you
Yeah,
have to
I
take a
mean
step back and have that gratitude and be like, and because you feel like, I can't wait to make this book better. And that doesn't mean it's easy, but it will be
no,
better.
it's never easy,
It's never easy.
but I'm grateful
I
for
love
it.
when it's like, there'll be like 20 comments. And I'm like, what's the low hanging fruit? You don't like this person's name? Find and replace. Done. All right. Now I
Yeah.
only have 19 comments. Of course, one of those comments is, I need a new protagonist or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle,
Yeah,
we're going to wrap up. Before we do, we're going to do a little bit of a storytelling of our own. This is the making
I'm
the out.
ready. This is my
Well,
bread and butter,
well,
sir.
you better be prepared because I'm doing something I don't normally do, but I happen to be doing it with you.
Oh,
We are
okay.
using your own book for this.
No.
Uh, because I have your arc here, your signed arc that you gave me at that dinner.
Okay.
Um, but
You're throwing a wrench into the works.
I know I've done it a few times before, and it's hard for the author to separate themselves from the story. So I usually try to pick a generic line that can go
Okay.
anywhere.
Okay.
Little bit harder with this book, obviously,
I
because
accept the
it's such a
challenge.
specific world. But give me how many words is this book, by the way? This feels dense to me.
150,000.
Is it 150,000? Actually, I wouldn't have thought it was that many, but
It is
I
many.
because I have the arc, and I'm like, this is dense because they always print the thinner paper with the arcs to save money. The print's not real small, but I'm like, it just feels hefty, even though it's not
Oh,
necessary.
yeah.
So
I mean, if you really need to, you can use it as a weapon.
I
If
will.
somebody
I will
tries to
use this
get to
as a
your
weapon.
house, good for
So
that.
give me a page between 1 and 500.
Oh man. Okay. Um, 19,
All
my
right. All
favorite
right.
number, my lucky number.
Oh, interesting.
Beginning.
I'm going to find something that might work. All right. Um, you do whatever you want with this.
So wait, I'm supposed to just like
Oh,
riff off.
sorry. So I'm going to read yeah, I didn't do the setup. I'm going to read a sentence, and that'll be
Okay.
the first sentence in a very short story, like 2 minutes long. I'm going to read a
Okay.
sentence. You give me the next sentence. I do a sentence. So we just feed off of each other.
Okay.
And then when it goes totally off the rails, I'll call it.
Very good.
One of the palace cats sauntered by, a black striped one that reminded her of a female tabby she'd had as a baby.
She gave the cat some of her breakfast because she wasn't hungry that morning.
To her surprise, the cat refused to eat, uncommon for a palace cat. And then the cat began a low howl, ridden with anxiety, borderline frantic.
She realized that the cat's jeweled collar had fallen from its neck. So she picked it up and quickly raced to put it back on the cat before it was too late.
But the cat swiped at her, drawing blood just under her index finger. And as the cat ran away, she realized it wasn't being mean. It was trying to tell her something, maybe show her something. The cat was asking her to follow.
She ran through the dawn-drenched halls after the cat, which should have been crowded with courtiers rising from their beds, except it was empty.
All right, I think we call it there because I was going to go super dark. There was going to be a body that the cat found. It was
I
going to get
mean,
really graphic and disgusting.
figured zombies probably
Maybe
came.
zombies, yeah, or mummies. Mummies come to life kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
that
Got all
was
Scooby Doo.
remarkably like reasonable, I think.
Yes, totally. Well, it was great catching up with you. I'm glad we had some time to chat at our dinner that night, but it was nice to sit down and have kind of a more in-depth conversation and hear a little bit about your story. It's fascinating.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Carter. It was great to see you.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you again.
Okay,
Take care, Michelle.
you too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, that is it. That is my conversation with Michelle Jabès Corpora. Great conversation, good storytelling at the end. Who knows what that cat was going to find? I probably was going to go pretty dark with it. So maybe it was best that we stopped where we did. Michelle's new book is His Face is the Sun. You can find the book and anything else you want to know about Michelle at her website, which is Michelle J. Corpora. And pop on over to carterwilson.com if you're interested in my books, my newsletter, other episodes of Making It Up, my blog, all that good stuff. Or you can head on over to unboundwriter.com if you're interested in getting a little help coaching either with the manuscript or with your writer's psychology. That is it. That is it for this episode of Making It Up. Thanks, as always, for watching and or listening. Just next week, we'll have another show up for you. In the meantime, as always, take care.